Hello, this is Rapid Regeneration. I'm David Escamilla. I am not a doctor. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not making any medical claims or claims about diseases. I am on a mission to help you. I am creating this program because of the miracle of my life not becoming terrible, which it did after I got plagued with health problems. And for 4 years, I was in such hell, and I thought my life would never get better in my early 20s. And then I discovered natural healing techniques that I used. I completely recovered after a few years. And ever since then, I've just been obsessed with finding out this knowledge, these keys, these secrets to the universe. And not only that, but I made a deal with God that if I could ever get saved and turn my life around, that I would help other people. So I'm helping you to do the same thing. If you have a health problem you're trying to solve, or maybe you just want to go to the next level, how about that? Because once I got recovered, that wasn't enough. I wanted to experience the next level of energy and vibration and spirituality and performance, and go beyond and keep going. So if you're interested in that and you want to do it the natural way, then that's what I'm here to help with. I've learned a lot in 7+ years of investigating this since 2015. So basically, before we get onto the tips and tricks, there's so many amazing tips and tricks, but there's one other thing that needs to be addressed. Okay, we've talked a lot about food, dealing with different food out there and interacting with food. We've also talked about cleansing and supplements and different things, but what about substances? Because we've talked about food. Sometimes, you can't really abstain from food, and you can't be 100% perfect, and sometimes you go back and you eat less healthy stuff maybe, and it's a spectrum, right? What about substances though? Because these things are going to be constantly around you, and how do you navigate that? How do you deal with that? The big three are going to be alcohol, marijuana, and caffeine. Those are kind of the big, most popular three. And so I just wanted to share with you what I've learned about these in terms of how they can affect the body. At what point should you use them, not use them, and at what levels? Because this can hold somebody back. I mean, it can really hold somebody back. You could be doing all the right things in terms of the cleansing, the supplements, eating healthy, but then if you're overindulging excessively in these areas, I mean, the other good work that you're doing, it can be totally in vain because it can hold somebody back and cause somebody to plateau. Now, I'm not up here like a Pharisee or like a goody two shoes saying I'm so perfect and I'm some priest or something. Okay, this has been personally very challenging for me. And by the way, I'm not going to address the more synthetic, man-made substances. Those are things which are clearly like pharmaceutical drugs or other synthetic street drugs. I mean, these are things that we obviously know it's redundant, the fact that they're very toxic and poisonous. So I'm going to assume that you know that, so we're not going to waste time beating a dead horse there. You would avoid those. But what about weed? What about alcohol, caffeine? I mean, these are relatively natural after all. Alcohol, you can make it organically. You can even make it from healthy ingredients like grapes. Marijuana is just an herb. It grows out of the ground. It's raw until you burn it. and then coffee beans or roasted coffee beans, or these different teas, tea leaves that are caffeinated. That seems natural enough. So that's why I want to focus in on this, because this can be very deceptive. Someone thinks, oh, it's just natural. It's natural, So pass the peace pipe, or pour me another round, or let me use the caffeine. So, but again, I'm not making any judgments about your life. Okay? I'm just bringing you another level of awareness. I want to look at the physiology and the chemistry, what happens when you consume these things. And I just want to share with you that, look, I loved these things for so many years. And even after I got into natural healing, I got into natural healing in 2015. Okay? Just for reference, I was still drinking alcohol all the way through like 2016, 2017 a little bit. I was still smoking weed up through 2017, 2018, and I was still drinking drinking caffeine all the way through like 2019. And while this was happening, and I was doing those things, I was still achieving incredible results from the cleansing, the herbs, the supplements, eating healthy, and these other natural methods. So I'm not saying that you can't ever, I'm not saying you can't do it like I'm a Catholic nun and I'm slapping your wrist. I'm just saying at a certain point, I did come to the conclusion that these things were holding me back. And they were holding me back. And I couldn't break through the next level until I tried without it. And when I did, I was kind of blown away at the heightened level of how good I felt. And I didn't want to give that up. So that's why I've kind of gotten to a place where, okay, you know what? I just like certain foods, I live without these things. And it's not fun. It's not always fun. And if there was, but actually it is fun, because the thing is, I'm having fun, the kind of fun that I had from age 1 to age 15 or 16 before getting into all this stuff. And back then I felt great and I was in a great mood. I didn't crave a mind-altering substance. I didn't need coffee to wake me up. I didn't need alcohol to be social. And I didn't need weed to have, an out-of-body psychedelic experience, because I could do all those things just naturally. So, and look, if I could get high, or if I could get drunk, or if I could get the buzz from caffeine, if I could feel those things without harming my body, I would do it absolutely. Okay? I love those feelings. I just haven't figured out a way to do it without causing toxicity to the body. So if you know of a way, if you figure out a way, let me know. Okay, we'll get together. But basically, here's the issues. Okay, so let's look at each one individually, the big three. And then you can decide for yourself, if you want to, maybe you change the way you're consuming them, maybe you cut them down and how much you're doing it, or maybe you move on with your life and you mature into a more mature individual, which I never thought that I would do, but here I am. So, okay, marijuana. Okay, at its raw level, it doesn't seem to be that concerning. In fact, you could juice. I've heard of people juicing cannabis, and that there's amazing benefits. I mean, this is a very special plant, and in its raw form, I don't take an issue with it. But like many things, that we've learned about, like with food, when you heat it, you alter its chemistry, and basically that becomes acidic. So, you have to heat it in order to get the THC or activate it out of the plant. So you can either burn basically burn it and inhale the smoke. You can infuse it with oil and cook it, and eat it, or you can heat it up using a vaporizer and inhale the steam. So these are just, again, so these are the three ways to get high from weed, but all three of those ways cause harm, because if you ingest heated oil, this is going to be mucus forming, acidic, acid forming, harmful to the digestive tract. And so all the chemistry gets bonded together in the heat, it oxidates, creates free radicals. So this is like eating something very toxic, heated oil and heated marijuana. So the other thing is it seems to me that with marijuana there's some level of neurotoxicity. I know, especially when people eat it, people say that it makes them feel high for days, or not high for days, but that even the next day and 2 days later they still feel kind of wonky. And so there's some lingering neurological effects, residues. The THC actually gets stored in the fatty tissues of the body, and it can stay there for months. So it seems to me that there could be, and in my experience, long-term implications of this affecting the neurological system, could be harmful and toxic or neurotoxic. Here's a side note about weed, is that you could be smoking weed that's, a lot of it's not organic, and pesticides are used on a lot of pot farms, and you have less control. If you're getting it from a dealer, you don't know what's in that. There's no quality control. Now maybe if you get it from a dispensary, or if it's legal where you live, then you can have more transparency into where it comes from to make sure that it is natural, it doesn't have any chemicals. So that's the issue with eating it. The issue with smoking it is you're creating direct harm to your lungs. You're putting hot smoke into your body. This is an offense to your tissues. It creates immediate inflammation to your lungs, your mouth, your throat, and your chest. Now, it would be less harmful if you cooled down the smoke. Like you have these devices where they have water. The water cools the smoke. You also have ice, or you can even have they have a component inside of it that you can freeze it in the freezer and then reattach it so it cools the smoke down. That would be far better, because now you're not literally burning your insides of your body. You are still breathing in carbon monoxide that's cold. It's still toxic, carbon monoxide, still creates acid chemistry, and it overworks the liver. The liver has to transmutate the chemistry when you breathe in carbon monoxide, even if it's cold. So there's still an issue there. You could also use a vaporizer, so you could breathe in steam instead of breathing in smoke. But you still have the heat factor, so then you're still potentially burning the insides of your tissues with the heat. So yeah, there's still an issue there, and basically you still have the neurotoxicity issue, the THC passing through the blood-brain barrier. So now those are kind of the physiological and chemical issues with consuming THC. Now there could be potentially other issues in terms of from personal or mental standpoint from smoking weed, or consuming weed in some way, yes, but that's not really my gig, is telling you, hey, if you stop smoking weed, your life's going to get a lot more organized, and you'll probably get a lot more done, and you'll probably move closer towards your goals quicker. That's kind of redundant, but that's a side issue. Okay, but there you go. That's weed. Now, alcohol. This is one of the one of the great pastimes of our society, is drinking alcohol. So now you do consume alcohol on some level, even if you abstain from alcoholic beverages, because sugar alcohols get created if foods are combined poorly. Like if you eat protein and sugar together, you're going to wind up with sugar alcohols. The sugars will ferment. They'll get held up by the protein, and they'll turn into sugar alcohol. So people can enjoy food not just for the taste, but also for the alcohol it creates, like a sandwich or a pizza, steak and potatoes. I mean, these things are a classic food combination of starch and protein, and basically create alcohol. So you can actually get buzzed from eating these types of foods, which is another reason I think people like them. Now, man, and we are obsessed with alcohol, Now, basically, you would want to definitely avoid alcohol if it comes from an ingredient that you wouldn't eat the original ingredient. So beer comes from grains. Well, we've talked so much about how grains are a complex sugar. They're acid forming, very, very harmful when consumed to humans. And so, yeah, drinking beer is like eating liquid fermented bread. So same thing with vodka, which comes from potatoes, or other examples. Whiskey is about not drinking alcohol from a food that you wouldn't eat. But what about other alcohols? What about wine, which comes from grapes? What about tequila, which comes from the agave plant? These are more natural. These would be not as bad as the other alcohols, in my opinion. Now, they can still have chemicals added to them, which are quite toxic in the processing, like sulfates, which get added to wine. Now, can you find alcohol, which is sort of all natural, with no toxins, no sulfates, no artificial ingredients added? Yes. I mean, there's products out there like that. Now, what if you consume that? What if you have alcohol? It's from, let's say, wine or tequila, and it's all natural. It doesn't have preservatives and chemicals and sulfates. Are there still issues with consuming it? I know you want me to say no, that it's fine. You can still consume it. Now, this is the least bad way you could consume alcohol, but there are still issues. I mean, alcohol in any form, it's going to be acidic. It's going to upset the alkaline balance of the body. The alcohol, it's harsh to the mouth, the throat, the stomach, the GI tract. The fact that it's fermented sugar alcohols, it's gonna encourage yeast, fungus, candida. It's gonna upset your microbiome in that way. Alcohol is dehydrating. It creates toxicity in excess amounts. It overworks the liver, overworks the kidneys, causes added stress to the heart. There's effects on the brain that are concerning. I mean, these are only a few of the problems with alcohol. So, there's better and worse ways you could consume it. And you're always going to consume some level of alcohol to some degree because of how foods get processed, and especially if you eat poorly combined foods. So that's the thing. Some people can still get away with drinking it. I mean, it's very tempting. Very, very tempting. It makes you feel just so great, and that's that's the problem with it. So now some people can get away with drinking it, and you know what? Maybe you can too. Some people have a Keith Richards complex. They can just abuse their bodies and they're still fine. So maybe you can still drink alcohol and live to be 70, 80, 90, devoid of health problems relatively, and so forth. So not everyone has that luxury. If you're like the rest of us, where you're not just superhuman or whatever, you can't afford to take one step forwards and then one step back and kind of be your own worst enemy. And if that's not working for you, or if it's causing problems, or you're sowing the seeds of later health problems, then just go ahead and cut it out. I mean, after I stopped, I whittled it down slowly. It got to the point where I didn't even crave it. I think a lot of craving alcohol is fungal. People crave it a lot of times. Maybe they probably have fungus, parasites, and if you go a couple of weeks without it, you're likely to not even crave it. But I would still drink it at social functions every couple months or whatever, and then after I really just stopped, it was. I just, everything rocketed to a whole new level. And I felt so good at the just throughout my day, regular times. My mood was so much better than it had been before. And so, yes, there's less peaks and valleys, but it's more just steady. But the baseline sense of normalcy is so much better without it, for me personally. So now, I'm still on the straight and narrow. I'll have a sip or something, maybe, once in a while. But yeah, I'm still on the straight and narrow there. So now there are social ramifications. It can be awkward to go to a bar or happy hour or a party or whatever, and you could feel left out and so forth. So there's some ways you can deal with that. Okay, you can order juice in a glass. Sometimes what I do is I just order a sparkling mineral water in a glass with a wedge of lime. And if I have that with a straw, nobody ever even asks me what I'm drinking. Everyone just assumes that I'm going along. And people will just slap you on the back. They'll tell you embarrassing things. They'll clink glasses with you. And you'll feel included. And I promise, when people go out and they're partying and having a good time, they literally won't even notice what you're drinking, or honestly, they'll just assume that you're doing the same thing that they're doing, for the most part. So that's how you can handle that. It's a personal choice. I don't judge you, whatever you do. Just don't have blinders on, and don't be naive saying there's no consequences if you consume alcohol. Have this awareness about it, so that if you do it, you have an awareness about what you're doing. Okay, lastly, caffeine. So this is a tricky one. It's America's favorite drug. It's the world's favorite drug, probably. You can create it from coffee beans, tea leaves, or other plants. It's very stimulating. Man, this was the toughest one for me. But yeah, for every action there's an opposite reaction. With caffeine, if it's so great, is there any downside? Well, first of all, coffee is very acidic. The bean itself is very acidic. Then when you grind it and boil it and roast it and what have you, this liquid is very acidic. It's dehydrating to the mouth, throat, stomach, intestinal tract. And even if you find a tea that's less acidic, there's still issues with caffeine. Caffeine is a toxin, and the liver has to process it out. It's overstimulating to the digestive system and the nervous system. And so you're going to overstimulate your body. Now, basically, this makes somebody dependent on it. It's literally a physical addiction. Just to have, regular bowel movements, and or to get their energy and focus for the day. If you take away the caffeine, now this person becomes lethargic, constipated, possibly in a poor mood, and low energy. So basically, if you overstimulate the nervous system over a long period of time, this can ultimately weaken the nerves, it can weaken the adrenal glands, it can lead to systematic decline and innervation, or the nerves lose their responsiveness. And that's the issue when you're overstimulating the body with caffeine. I struggled with this, trust me, and I really needed it, I felt like, because my days were so demanding. So I justified still drinking it. Now, I did switch from coffee, because it was so harsh, to guayusa tea, which is tea made from guayusa leaves, which there's beverages out there you can get. You can also brew your own. And I felt that this was much, much better for the body and still equally powerful as coffee. Then I slowly lowered my intake of guayusa. Then I went cold turkey off of caffeine because I knew it was holding me back. I just couldn't stop it for a while. I just was so hooked on it. And this was very challenging. For 2 to 3 weeks, I was struggling. I was going through withdrawal. As soon as that was over, man, it was just clear blue skies. And I discovered this long lost dynamic energy. I didn't really miss it after that or feel like I even needed it. I just had energy. And man, that's tough. And there's a huge difference between the artificial stimulated energy of caffeine and natural, long-lasting, dynamic energy. Just think back to your childhood, or maybe when you were a teenager. And can you remember how you felt? And did you have an energy and enthusiasm? Maybe doing something you really enjoyed, like sports or summer camp or going to your friends' houses. And do you remember how that felt, just being energized? That's how you can feel without drinking caffeine. And, I already mentioned that about alcohol and marijuana. And so here's the other thing is, if you're getting really into the natural health world, if you're eating healthy, and if you're getting the body cleaned out, and if you're eating a lot of raw foods and a lot of fruit, for me personally, this gives me a literal buzz, and it makes me feel on a sensory level sensually good. And so from someone who used to chase around substances in my wilder days, I can appreciate the buzz that I get and just literal the good feeling I get from eating like this, eating a lot of healthy foods, and so that's kind of a natural high, you could say. Okay, so that's it. Those are the big three. The one other thing I might mention is there's other substances out there besides those big three that are still, quote, natural. This is a big thing that goes on. You have these ceremonies. You have, quote, plant medicine that's psychedelic. You have these different things, and some of them are natural. So it's worth addressing that, like things like magic mushrooms. Okay, so this is something that may be able to be consumed with only some amount of toxicity. I do still believe there is some level of toxicity there and neurotoxicity, but it seems like less. And I understand that there's some substantial benefits. I've personally benefited from it, even after embracing, a healthy lifestyle I have. And so sometimes, there can be a greater amount of benefit that you get from the small amount of toxicity that's created. Now, in the case of marijuana, on the other hand, okay, yes, you also get these special insights from marijuana and benefits like maybe that you do from mushrooms, where you learn things and you have these amazing revelations. But marijuana, though, is much more toxic in my view to the body. So you have to weigh the trade-off. Is it worth it to consume something that's this toxic? What kind of chemistry does it create versus the special insights that you're going to get? Where mushrooms, it's less toxic in my view, versus getting a lot more benefits. But I'm not saying eat mushrooms. In fact, I see issues with it. I'm just saying, I'm not completely monastic. My approach is not 100% abstinence. I'm not saying I will never do anything that's mind altering. I'm just looking at this from a totally balanced, holistic point of view. So just be aware and be aware of the effects that something can have and have your awareness. So if you don't consume these things, surely you'll be surrounded by people who do. That's the world we live in. And so, you might feel lonely for a fleeting moment at times. And just, if you choose to go this way and elevate yourself beyond these things, just power through the loneliness, because it only lasts a moment, or, a small part of an evening. But take comfort in the fact that in the high of your actual lifestyle and knowing the dynamic longevity of living a long time without problems that you're likely to have, and that you don't need this temporary fleeting high that can be toxic and it can overstimulate and can damage the nervous system. So ask God for help. Okay, stay strong. And I'm not judging you. It's your journey. I have my own struggles, but honestly, it's easy now. I don't literally even ever feel tempted at all to do these things now. So it's gotten so much easier. I do feel high on life. Now it's maybe not as good of a high, but it feels worthwhile to me, and I do feel I'm gonna just live a long, healthy, vibrant life, and that to me feels so good, and it's worthwhile. So that's my personal choice. I'm not judging you, but I am encouraging you to have an awareness about these things as you go through and navigate this issue. So I hope that's helpful. I believe there's one other little segment before getting to the tips and tricks. So I hope you found that this was worth looking at. I'm sure you're going to be confronted with this. So just think about it. Have it in the back of your mind. I'm here to help. I mean, this stuff, it held me back early on, and I didn't realize this stuff about these substances. And so that's it. The website is rapidregeneration.com. Stay strong, and I'll see you on the next segment.
For more information, please follow @Rapid Regeneration or visit rapidregeneration.com.